Number 15. The bridge is falling down. You've probably seen the damage created from a semi rushing through an overpass that was way too low, but have you seen the same incident with a ship? Well, here's your chance. Of course, the accident is a much different sight when water is involved, because it's not quite as easy to stop a moving ship in a second's notice. This ship made a bad call by passing through what appears to be a bridge or structure with an overpass that was too low to allow the ship's entrance. The sturdy structure sways slightly but is mostly unfazed as it destroys the upper portion of the ship. Number 14. Shipwreck. This short clip isn't very complex, but it does show how unpredictable water traffic can be. A cameraman and several others are boarded on an open ship. Just a few feet from this is a large empty platform ship. While no one is thrown off board, and neither of the ships begin to immediately sink, it's probable that they both experience some level of damage, not to mention it was clearly startling to those on board. Number 13. Ferry crush. This clip, which is a minute and a half long, shows a massive ferry ramming into a dock and accidentally crushing several shipping containers. The ramp of the ferry is snapped and crushed as well. The road near the ferry and small barrier protecting the road also face damages. A direct cause is never explained though, as usual. Since no one was in the shot or near the shipping containers, we can assume no one was hurt. However, if drivers were on the road during the time of the accident, they may have at least run over some debris. Number 12. Slow impact. It's a little unclear exactly where this is. Aside from that, it's obviously near a very popular dock. A large industrial ship is moving from the dock towards the ocean, as several smaller ships, boats, and yachts are parked near the dock. As the massive ship slowly moves out to sea, it veers slightly too close to the parked vessels. It impacts into several of them, causing damage and even pushing a few underwater. The ship does veer away from the dock as the captain likely made an effort to avoid the rest of the smaller ships. Though the captain was probably panicked and trying hard to reverse the mistake, the hesitant movement makes it seem like someone didn't care at all about the smaller vessels and just decided to slowly force them out of the way. On the other side of this massive ship, a few feet behind is a smaller vessel, which makes it hard for the suspect to get away from the parked victims. Eventually, all of the smaller boats pile up near a mid-sized one and a seawall. Both the large vessel and all the smaller ones stop moving completely as water bubbles in the mess. This is a slow motion failure that seems impossible to undo. While it's hard to determine just how expensive the material damage was, no humans were hurt, so that's a bright side. Number 11. Thrown to the sea. In this clip, a large fishing boat carries several passengers and equipment. In this case, the fail wasn't the fault of anyone maneuvering the vessel. Instead, the incident is caused by Mother Nature herself, or at least an off-camera force. The boat, being recorded from another nearby vessel or possibly a dock, is approaching the scene when a large wave impacts into it. The boat topples to the right. For a moment, it appears the boat will flip onto its side, but luckily does not. Either way, the force was immense and startled those on board. In fact, one passenger can be seen flying off the left of the boat. Their arms and legs spread to create a flailing dark figure in the distance, mostly hidden by the mess of the splashing waves. They fall into the water just as the boat begins to sway back into place. The clip ends before it shows the victim being assisted. Hitting a big wave from this height could very likely lead to some harm. Worst case scenario, they suffered a broken bone. Either way, they were probably shocked when the ride was going well, and in less than 2 seconds they were flying towards the ocean. The bright side in this ordeal is that no one else was thrown overboard, the boat was not damaged, and no one was at fault. This was a random act of nature that is usually well expected at sea. Number 10. Fun overboard. The small boat with a strong motor was being controlled by an adventurous sailor. The driver was likely someone inexperienced, or someone that got a little too excited. The boat, going at high speeds, begins to pick up at the front as the motor is going too fast for the water to balance out the weight. It skids across the water and completely lifts into the air for a short second before impacting back down. When the boat impacted back to the water's surface, it nearly flipped sideways, creating a huge splash and knocking the sailor overboard. The watercraft settles, and we see the driver pop out of the water just before the clip ends. Chances are he was uninjured and the boat escaped with little to no damage. This mistake did make for a great clip that teaches a lesson about getting too wild on a small watercraft. Number 9. Sinking. The bad thing about this clip is how quickly it cuts off. It's a little more unsettling than the previous entries, and because it ends before we see the ship's surface, we are left wondering what became of the vessel and its possible passengers. The vessel seems to be a distance away from a shore where the video is being recorded. Once again, in this instance, the damage is caused by a large, swiftly moving wave and is not the fault of a captain or machinery. The vessel is moving away from the shore when a large wave comes forward in a matter of seconds and flips the boat upwards. The front end lifts into the air and throws the ship in an upright position. It actually flies into the air several feet above the water's surface before it instantly impacts back into the water, seemingly upside down. The wave continues forward and hides the view of the boat, which seems to have gone underwater. The clip unfortunately ends, so it's unclear if the ship sank or made a safe comeback. An occurrence like this could cause vast amounts of water to quickly make way into the watercraft and cause it to completely sink. A sinking ship is of course a threat to any passengers or cargo on the ship, as well as the ship itself. Again though, this kind of thing is usually expected at sea, and precautions are put in place in practice to save lives that may be at risk. Hopefully no one was hurt. Number 8. Heading to shore. This video shows a small boat carrying only one passenger and a light load of cargo heading towards the shore of a beach. One man in an orange vest waits on the shore for the ship to reach land, likely to help the captain unload the cargo. The small boat with a large motor on the back end begins to race towards the shore, even lifting upwards shortly as the speed is too fast for the current. Within literal seconds, the small ship lunges forward and turns on its side. Its passenger or captain is thrown overboard onto the sandy beach. The boat skids slightly forward, knocking over several items and boxes, as the other man throws his hands into the air, angered at the inconvenient mess created. Thankfully no one was hurt, and the ship as well as its cargo likely didn't experience any extensive damage. Number 7. Yacht lift. When you consider moving large vessels from one location to another, you'd assume it'd be done with other ships or large tow trucks. The owners of the small family boat had something completely different in mind though. For some reason they thought their best method of transport was helicopter. Though the clip is literally only a few seconds long, we can easily get the gist of what happened. A helicopter is several feet above the scene, and a large belt or harness is secured around the boat. Of course, it wasn't that safely secured because just as it lifts the vessel into the air, it slips from the harness and falls sideways back into the water.
Whoa!
What makes the situation even worse is that 2 or 3 people were still on board. This gives the impression that they planned to ride in the boat as the helicopter transported it. This clip would have been much worse if the boat slipped out of the harness, as it was hundreds of feet off the ground. No one appears to have been seriously injured in this fiasco, but the clip cuts off before a follow-up is provided. Number 6. Crane drop. Here we see yet another ship incident involving a weak crane. This one seems to happen very suddenly though. A large ship is being moved onto a storage dock with the help of an industrial crane. The ship is several feet off the ground and moving slowly towards it. A nearby supervisor is watching the ship to assure nothing goes wrong and to help direct the crane operator. It all goes smoothly at first, but suddenly motion stops. The whole scene goes still, and in the blink of an eye the crane gives up. The ship impacts towards the dock, causing everything to quake. As soon as the ship touches ground, we see the crane literally snap at the base and fall on top of the ship. The dust settles and we can no longer see the supervisor on ground. Thanks to a change in camera zoom, he was a safe distance from the ship though, so we can assume he just ran out of the shot. While no human beings were hurt in this incident, clearly thousands or more in damage was caused. Number 5. Sliding off the dock. The next video is a bit hard to decipher. It's quite unclear what causes the massive ship to tip over into the water. Additionally, the end of the video has an almost jump scare effect. This large ship is loaded on a dock atop what appears to be a set of bleachers or a slanted platform. There's also a long thick wire attached to the ship, which heads somewhere off screen. This is part of a process known as ship launching. The process uses a slanted platform to slide the ship into the water, with the heaviest part hitting the water first. This allows the rest of the vessel to follow suit and immediately float atop the ocean. While this method has been used for literally centuries, it isn't always so black and white. In this case, the ship begins to slowly slide off the platform and eventually turns sideways. It's likely that something was misaligned, which caused the heavier side of the ship to stay on the dock while the lighter end hit water first. Again, within nanoseconds, the ship impacts into the ocean almost completely sideways. A mess of water and wood splashes towards the camera in a near 3D setup just before the camera shuts off, as the operator likely ran to safety. Something like this could quickly become a dangerous issue for those on board. Of course, cargo could be lost and expensive damage could be done to the ship. Number 4. Rear-ended at sea. Have you ever been rear-ended while sitting at a traffic light? Imagine something like that in the open sea while on board a massive cargo ship. In this clip, two ships just so happen to be very close to each other while in the wide open ocean. Very slowly but with great force, one ship comes up behind another and directly impacts into it. It's hard to determine what went wrong here. Mostly ships have radar systems to alert them of nearby vessels to avoid, and it seems the captain would have had time to change directions. Then again, many other variants are at play. Weather or unexpected waves could have pushed the second ship off path, or it could have been following the ship in front and their speed changed abruptly. One great thing about this video is of course the slow motion impact. Because ships don't necessarily always move quickly, it appears that they're slowly wrecking into another. Seeing something happen this slowly with cars would be humorous for sure. Even better is the cameraman's surprise commentary as he watched the failure from a safe distance. The second ship continues to slowly push the first until they are perpendicular to one another and the smaller ship begins turning on its side. Of course, the clip ends there, so we aren't shown if the smaller ship sinks or how exactly the situation is fixed. Hopefully no one was hurt in this slow-moving, somewhat hilarious mess. Number 3. Kissing ships. This clip is also a bit confusing at first. The cameraman seems amazed and concerned, but not really scared as it appears two giant cruise ships are getting too close for comfort. The clip begins with the cameraman saying, "Oh my god," as he shows several guests on the edge of the deck, looking towards the front end of the ship. Both ships seem to be touching at the front end, and the cameraman says, "We just ran into another ship."
Royal, how ironic.
We're in Cosmo. We just ran into another ship.
The ships are touching in a triangular manner. The front ends have collided, but the back ends are a huge distance apart. Again, one has to question how this could happen, since ships are on a set path and commonly have radar, especially cruise ships that seem to be owned and operated by the same company. The guests on board look towards the damage and discuss the ordeal, but seem generally at ease. A few of them can be heard laughing. and many of them walk away and leave it to the professionals to worry about. This is surprising considering how many historical events gone badly that have occurred on ships. Maybe they were taking advantage of vacation time and didn't want to get too worked up about something that couldn't be easily fixed. Number 2. Crane launch. In this example, a smaller ship is being placed into the water using a method very different from the platform used in the previous entry. It appears that in this method, a large mobile crane is being used to lift the ship off the dock and place it gently into the water. The failure that follows is anything but gentle though. As the ship gets closer to the water, the crane begins to lift off the dock. It's apparent that the ship was heavier than they anticipated, as the weight is uneven, which pulls the crane forward. Instead of returning the ship to its original place on the dock, the crane operator goes for it and continues moving the ship towards the water. This could have been because the crane was not powerful enough to push the ship back onto the dock. The vessel impacts into the adjacent side of the dock and impacts rear first into the water. As this is happening, the crane has been entirely lifted from the ground and topples forward, hitting other nearby equipment. By the end of the clip, the small vessel is mostly safely placed in the water, but the dock is severely damaged and the crane is standing straight up. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you've ever been curious as to what I look like in real life, then follow me on Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT with underscores instead of spaces. I also have a Twitter at YT_chills where I post video updates. I'd really appreciate it if you followed me, and feel free to send me a DM if you have any questions or suggestions. If you'd like to see more of these videos in the future, then hit that subscribe button because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Number 1. Burning Cruise. In May 2016, more than 40 passengers aboard the Aphrodite cruise ship were caught in this midst of a terrifying failure. While this ship was docked in Halong Bay, it quickly caught fire. Flames engulfed the ship in a matter of seconds as panicked passengers jumped into the sea for safety. An Australian passenger said to NMZE News, "I climbed over the front balcony down 2 decks by just dropping and hoping for the best." A news release by Aphrodite Cruises said that 37 foreign tourists from Taiwan, France, Switzerland, UK, New Zealand, Korea, and India were aboard the ship. 3 passengers and 1 crew member suffered minor injuries, and 33 passengers were taken back to Hanoi safely. This news release also stated, regarding the cause of the incident, Deputy Director of Fire Protection Police said that the cause could be due to a careless visitor and staff who smoked and ignored fire prevention. Of course, many people thought this assumption was unfair without proper investigation and aimed to shift the blame on passengers. The video provided shows several passengers jumping from as high as the 3rd floor of the ship into the water, where first responders attended to them.
Just jump,
While these visitors were quick thinking and likely saved their own lives, it's hard to fathom the fear going through their minds as they took a literal leap of faith. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy!